Hey friends, welcome to the Equipping Podcast from Citylight Church in Omaha. Our goal is to help you grow in wisdom and love for God and neighbor. We hope this episode encourages you and equips you in your walk with God. Today, we are talking about a book that you introduced me to.
Yeah.
And
I read it so long ago.
Right.
But there's just, we've talked
about... When I
about,
talked about talking about this.
Yeah, I was like,
you're like,
well,
well, it's been a decade ago or something.
Yeah, I'm going to have to rush up on this. Which, I mean, in some senses it's funny because like going back and revisiting it and looking over it, like there's a lot of things I just live by this book. Like this is the way I
Well, okay, so
probably the most formative thing for me as a manager.
It's Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But this is actually what I was going to say is so part of why I enjoyed the book is, you are a manager. I don't know if you want to say your company name or any of that, but
I was thinking about that. I'll probably avoid that, but
okay. But anyway,
if you guys know me, you know
so
me. So
you have a team of people that you manage, and as we have talked and I've gotten to know you, you've shared what you do in management and how you protect your people. Yeah. And so I, for a long time, have been an admirer of how you manage and care for people, and especially the degree to which you make them safe.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to help them to feel a part of the team, to feel like they're protected, that you've got their back. You're going to take the shots for them, right?
Yeah. It's funny because in sort of brushing up on this book again for this, let's put it this way. For the last couple of years, there have been things that have sort of shaken my conviction that this is like, they're part of me is like, is this what a manager should, is this what a leader should do? Is this what, and it's funny because I was reading this back up again. I was like, oh yeah, first off, this is obviously why I thought this was the way to do it. And if I had forgotten, I'm quoting Simon Sinek all the time. And then secondly, I was like, no, exactly. This is the only thing that matters. Why are we? Everybody needs to stop. Like there's a TED Talk where he talks about some of this stuff, and when he's giving this, I'm like, yeah, those guys all need this in the audience, and I need, my boss needs this. Everybody needs to leave me alone. This is all that matters. This is it. This is the job. Yeah.
Well, but the punchline for me is that when I read this book, I was like, oh, this is Jared.
You just read the handbook for how to become Jared. Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly right.
Well, and I mean that as a compliment. I mean,
well, and it's funny because I have, to be fair and critical, I have moved away a little bit from. I really like Simon Sinek, and I still would think of him as like somebody who's formative in the way that I think about being a leader and a manager. There's really two things that are formative for me in the way that I manage people and lead people. One of them was working for a company called Quick Trip years and years and years ago. I mean, like in 2001, like that long ago. So I was thinking through that. Anyway, and then the other one is probably Simon Sinek. And these two things, there are elements of this that I've moved away from over time. Like there are things that he says now that I'm like, well, okay. Yeah. He's a secular, very secular, I
want to put a pin in that. Yeah. And I want you to think about that. But let's talk first about like what's he after and why is this a good idea? Sure.
So at its core, Simon Sinek is trying to get leaders. First off, there's one I really like that he struggles a little bit for a while going back and forth between saying good leaders do this, bad leaders do that. And finally he said, you know what, that's not true. You're either a leader or you're not. Like if you're doing these things, you're a leader. And if you're not doing these things, you're not a leader, which I appreciate that. He uses an illustration at one point of a woman shielding her child's body with, there's shooting going on. This is like in South Africa, there's shooting going off and she dives over her child's body. And he says, that's a leader. Like at its core, that woman who nobody else is following, there's no company, there's no multi-million anything. That woman is a leader. And that's the core trait, is this trait of making your people feel, as much as possible, making your people feel secure and safe. And that if you can do that, then your people become free to do great things.
Well, it seems to me though that is relatively controversial to say that, because there's another model of leader. Like a leader, leader is someone who brings you somewhere.
I'm going to
who achieves something.
I said I'm not going to say anything about my company I work, and I'm not. Okay. But I have recently been told
Jared works for Blockbuster Video.
Yeah, Blockbuster Video. Don't let it get back to them. I think there's still one in Alaska.
No, it's Oregon, but that's
cool. There's this thing that we've gone through some various incentive structure conversations and disciplinary stuff and everything else, and who stays and who doesn't. And there's this thing that has been rattled off like a mantra to me. In work environments, it's not just where I am now. In work environments around the world that say, pay yourself first. Or we can always extend ourselves out to the people that are making us money, right? Sure. It's like when you say, well, I was actually taking care of my family. I was like, no, you were taking care of yourself. Your family was an extension of yourself, right? Sure. And so it's this, it is pay your best people first. And I've had that said to me so often, pay your best people first. Yeah. And that rankles me.
Reward results.
And part of that's actually the thing that maybe I was questioning the most, is like, that's been said to me so many times recently. Yeah. And the title of his book is the exact opposite of that. It's Leaders Eat Last. It is his point is that you can make your people feel safe to be able to do stuff if you put them first.
One of the things that I've chuckled at is something that shows up a number of times in this book, but you'll sometimes talk about how your company vision or mission statement is something that's like, we're gonna, I don't know, maybe you can just explain how this works, but essentially, like, we're gonna take that mountain, and the mountain is like, that our shareholders will make $1 bajillion. Yeah. And everybody's like, let's do it.
And you must scream yes, or you're basically dragging your heels.
Let's make rich people richer.
Yeah. And the thing is, I'm not against rich people getting super rich. I'm not against my company getting super rich. So I mentioned two major influences, Simon Sinek and Quick Trip. I want to mention Quick Trip because one of the things I loved about Quick Trip, I don't know if this is still true there. I haven't worked there in 26 years. But one of the things that was so cool about being there that I loved, and they lived it when I was there. It's one thing for companies to have core values. Every company has core values. Yeah. It's another thing entirely for those core values to be brought up as mantras for how we solve problems on a daily basis. Like when you're dealing with somebody at a gas pump, and you don't know whether you should do this or do that, and somebody quotes one of the core values, like that was a daily thing at Quick Trip, which I thought was really interesting. Really, really interesting. But they had these 5 core values, and they had this purpose statement, and their purpose statement was a genius. It was a really, like you said, very countercultural realization. Their purpose statement was to create an environment where employees could thrive and grow. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. And that is fundamentally different than most companies. Yeah. Because every company, and this is business 101, but every company has to choose a focus. And most company, the three things you can choose from are profit, the cheap, like service, a customer, make the customer happy.
Yeah. Profit,
customer, or your people.
Or employee.
Right. You have to choose one of those things to prioritize. And the thing is, doing any one of those well will almost certainly involve bringing the other two up in some way. Yeah. Right? Like profiting, you're probably going to need good people. You need to take care of your customers, all that. So it's not that they don't matter, but when there's a stress or when there's downside, when there's trouble, that's when you're going to find out which one matters. And most companies that have chosen, and again, I'm an American, whatever. Right. Most companies that have chosen profit as their primary, you'll see it when they start losing people or making choices anti-people. And I'm not even saying layoffs are always bad. This is not me saying there's no situation where layoffs could need to happen.
There's so many conversations we can have.
There's so much more complicated than that.
He's trying to say that the situation with layoffs has gotten out of hand.
Sure. Right. Sure.
But I think that at the core, and this kind of resonated with me, is that there is a sort of, you could just picture like this sort of ideal group where you have a group of people who are banded together for some let's say common survival, right? And they pick a leader, and the point of picking the leader, in picking the leader, they're picking someone who can help them be better as a group. Like can we?
We're
survive,
going to win.
Right?
We believe in your vision.
And so then they get perks because the expectation is then they run towards danger and they're the first one in.
Right.
And so that's like at the core of what this book's about, is like a leader. And again, it's taken from the Marine Corps, right? That the line "leaders eat last" is from the Marines.
He asked the Marines why they. Right. He asked a general why. What's so special about the Marines? Because the guy said leaders eat last, or officers eat last.
They were saying that literally the youngest Marines eat first, and the officers eat last. Right. Yeah, and to him, that's how it should work.
Well, and it builds the case. The underlying thing that is said all the time, and I think this is maybe the genius of Simon Sinek in some of his other books too, is being able to identify like a driving element that made a culture that there's a culture that everybody wants, and that's easy to say, we want that culture, but the question is, how do you get it?
We want to feel loyal and energized and connected,
and the culture that he's driving at in the Marine Corps, and this is something I've heard it said by, I have friends in the military who've said this dozen times over. I've heard it said in tons of different ways, and that is that they, why would you do this for them? Well, because they would have done it for me. Yeah, that's like at the core of this good culture that he's trying to get at. I have a very good friend who would say, you ask him, like, I ask people all kinds of weird questions, and I was asking him, like, well, was it because of the, why did you join, or why did you join? And he told me why he joined, and then why did you, in this particular hard time that you told me about, what was driving you through that? And it wasn't, it wasn't patriotism, and it wasn't America, and it wasn't even the Marine Corps at that time. It was just the guys in the trench with him. And that underlying idea that I did it for him because he would have done it for me is really easy to say, I want that culture. Yeah. But it's hard. I think Simon Sinek's, well, then how do you create that? And that's his what leaders, it's eating last, but it's more than that. It's making sure that the people at the bottom feel like they're going to be taken care of. They're going to be fed, or in that example, or they're going to be protected to the extent that the leader can. Or if they're not protected, whatever hits them will have hit the leader first. Right? That if they can't be protected, then we're all going to go down together. Yep.
And I would say at a very big picture level, what he's talking about in terms of how this has broken down is that what we said at the beginning, the leaders are eating first, right? Like there's been a significant shift in so this is at least partly historical that he's talking about, right? So he talks about he tells a story of Reagan's firing of air traffic controllers, right? And the sort of fallout from that in terms of company culture of sort of dealing with dips in or recessions by laying off large numbers of people. Right. And the basic idea is like you're shifting your metric from the employees to the company. Right. And there's this sort of myth of shareholder value that forms.
He kind of digs into this idea that it's like, are you driving at or protecting your numbers in order to protect your people, or are you protecting your people in order to protect your numbers, right? Which one matters? Which is the one that if push comes to shove, I'm going to lose one of the two.
Sure, yeah.
And that's that core decision we've switched. And at this point, it's not a secret. Like if I had people in the corporate world at this table with me, they would happily say, of course, you got to make the numbers work.
Right.
You're right. I get it.
Yeah. A business has to make profit. It has to be sustainable.
There's he mentions two things, two businesses that I thought were really interesting. One of the businesses he mentions is a business who, it's funny because I looked it up afterwards to see, like, in real life, is this business still around? Because that would be a telling. If it wasn't, if it went out of business, you'd be like, oh, well, it was a neat idea, but it didn't work.
I think I know what you're going to say.
But this business that granted essentially lifetime employment, he said, I will never fire somebody for underperforming.
Almost impossible to get fired.
If you're gonna fire somebody, it's going to be for abuse. It's going to be for lying, whatever. You're never going to fire anybody for underperformance. That is just an insane policy. Yeah. Like in our current, in our era, that seems insane.
Do they exist, by the way?
Yeah, they're still around.
Okay.
Yeah. That I had to look that up because this book has been written quite a while ago. Yeah. That is such a crazy policy, because can you imagine I do what I can in my little team of like 8 people to make them feel safe and to make them feel aware of the risks coming down. And like, as a team, here's how we together position ourselves. We do that. We have that conversation where we'll openly say the person that this threatens is this person. So this is how we as a team are going to pivot to make sure that doesn't happen. Like they know that that's my strategy, is that we huddle around our people, right? Yeah. But I can talk about that on my little team, but can you imagine a corporation, a boss saying openly, like the immediate reaction to everyone else around that boss at that level is, well, people are going to stop performing. You're not going to get the money out of them. Yeah. And he's confident in that situation. He's confident that actually the opposite's true. If they feel safe, they will feel empowered to pursue greatness with you.
Yeah, so the picture he's pointing is of a group, a company that has a group of employees that feel satisfied in what they're doing, are confident in what they're doing, and are supported by bonds of love and trust. And so then the reason why he's so concerned about layoffs is essentially they add a dimension of stress to the organization, which
unknown and fear
erodes all of those things. Yeah, right. So if you are,
and I've seen that.
If you are basically, like, if you know that the bottom third lowest performers are in danger of getting laid off the next time the company goes through anything rough, you have no incentive to feel like your family. That's a buzzword, but yeah. You have no incentive to feel like we're in this together, and I'm going to make sacrifices for you, and you'll make sacrifices for me. Like that, I don't have no loyalty to the people above because I'm just a resource for them. And I'm not a person. I'm a number. Right. And the really fascinating story for me was the company that, instead of laying off a certain percentage of their workforce because they were financially had to do it.
That's the other story I was thinking of.
They basically said, hey, we're going to need everybody to take a voluntary furlough.
5 weeks furlough, or 4 weeks furlough, everybody, volunteer.
Each person,
Take it whenever you want. It's going to be unpaid. And everybody, CEO down to the mailroom clerk, everybody has to do this. And I love what he said happened after that, besides the fact that they pulled together and made that work, which is just... Yeah. So
even people,
before I say what happened,
people who...
I was going to say, before I say that.
Yeah.
The thing is, I have been in situations relatively recently where we have had the very hard choice of there are financial things that need to be done. Yeah. And the question that was posed was, well, what could we have done? Yep. And the answer is this. Any, like, this kind of stuff. The answer is you actually, you almost never actually, and this is what we were talking about.
The question, what could else have been done, is almost always asked by someone who has not really flexed their imagination to come up with a list of possibilities.
So, and it's like that across the board. It's like that across the board. We are, we were talking about AI and things like that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail, but like almost across the board, we get to this point where we get to this question and we're like, well, what else could I do? I had to adopt.
It's throwing your hands
How else could I get the most recent phone? You don't need the most recent phone.
Right.
Well, yeah, but how else could I then be on Facebook and Twitter and everything? You don't need to be on Facebook and Twitter. Well, how else could I promote my company onto online marketplaces and grow to the size of... You don't need to promote your company. You know what I mean? Like, right. It's not that, and I'm not even saying you shouldn't do any of those things, but we have this underlying assumption. Joe, a friend of mine at church, and I were talking yesterday, but there's an underlying assumption that we're going to accept the technology. We're going to accept the new thing.
That's just determined.
And therefore, how do we...
we have to adapt the new ways of doing it.
He said it this way. He said, the question isn't should Christians do this? It's how should Christians use this technology better? And he said, but should we? We've granted already the premise that of course we should do this thing. Right. The question is, how should we do it better? Yeah. And that's the same thing with this business stuff. Is like I look at this and so the example, I love that in that example where they were required to do furlough, then people started trading furlough. People who could afford and wanted more time off, it would take an extra week, and people who couldn't afford it would take less. Yep. And so the company ended up sort of pulling together, covering the time off that they all needed. And the thing is, I'm positive setting aside the broad strokes of that story, I'm positive people quit and found other jobs too.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what happens.
Yeah.
That also achieves what the company needed. Right? Like the company needed people to find other, to leave. Right? To not be paid. But, and I'm sure
you can imagine.
But they're also still there.
You can imagine the fallout from this.
Yeah.
Like the fallout if they had laid off 15% of their workforce would be, I could be next.
Yeah. And
so I better show that I'm better than this guy.
And it totally is.
The reverse fallout is
they'll do anything to help. If my head does end up on the chopping block, I'm confident that it will be because the CEOs was there first. Yeah. Right? And that's exactly it. And I've been in those situations again recently where we've had that I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I get really, really high reviews from my team. Like my team, every time they get a chance to say the best things about me, they do. And it was funny because I was sitting in a meeting with a person several levels higher than me, and they were discussing essentially merging my team into another team. And they were talking through different things, and they were basically reviewing the numbers on my team. And they ended up reviewing some of those reviews and saying, well, your team certainly thinks very highly of you. And I said, yeah, but everybody's team says that stuff. And she said, my team doesn't say that about me. And I was like...
And you're like, that's because you're awful.
I'm so sorry. I meant most teams probably say...
What am I supposed to say here?
Yeah, anyway. But that's my point, is like... And just being a well-liked leader isn't everything, right? Yeah. But... The
point we're making is why.
Well, the reason I bring all that up is because I would say that I am a team member who has done that very well, who has made my team feel as safe as I possibly can. And yet, when we did do layoffs, it
made people feel stressed.
It cracked my reputation with them. Like the point was because I would never lie to them. And so when they come to me and say, okay, we believe that you could not have prevented that. Now you're telling us confidently that there won't be any more, but you just said you couldn't prevent that, and you couldn't have told us earlier than you did.
Yeah.
How would we know? And I'm not going to lie to them and say, well, this time you would know.
Yeah, right.
Because layoffs are devastating for company morale and for that feeling, because and I think if you had to do layoffs as a corporate in a corporate structure, I think one of the only ways to make it really work in a way that might not devastate company morale would be to lay off high-level people, too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, right.
Well, all the way through the chain.
And that's, I think that's fundamentally Simon Sinek's point in this book, is that it's not an issue that no sacrifice, or that you should never make sacrifices to save the company.
Right.
The issue is a systematic and
leaders
growing tendency for leaders to protect themselves at the expense of the others.
Yeah, it's the golden parachute that we all talked so much about in 2008 when the economy was collapsing. The people who had caused it were literally fine.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, and he said at one point, he flipped it around the other way, and he said, nobody cares about the numbers. We don't care about how many millions of... He said nobody would be upset at all if people gave a check of millions of dollars to Mother Teresa, right, or Gandhi, or whoever, pick your favorite, saintly character. He said the problem is not the numbers of the money that's being given. The problem is the character. We believe that Mother Teresa is doing everything she can. We believe that that Gandhi would put his own life on the line or whatever. And again, I pick your person, but I think that's exactly it. Is the our ability to believe in that our ability to believe in the people above us is absolutely critical for that.
Yeah. Well, his lessons are: so goes the culture, so goes the company. Yeah. So goes the leader, so goes the culture. Integrity matters, friends matter, and lead people, not numbers.
Yeah.
And I do think that, just to kind of make a more theological turn here,
that was
this is servant leadership. How could you imagine a better example than the head of the church is the one who sacrificed himself for the sake of the church?
Yeah.
And even in addition to that, what is the church? It's an organism that's interconnected, that's a unity in diversity, that outdoes one another in showing honor, that leaves nobody behind. I mean, these are the core aspects of what it means to be.
And even Brett Hanson's book, The Men We Need. Yeah. One of the things he defines a man as a person who makes women and children feel safe.
Feel safe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's that same principle. What is he doing there? He's being a leader by doing what? By making the people around him feel safe. Yeah. That core characteristic. What is Christ doing when he gives himself for us? He's making us safe. Right. That core characteristic is the right absolute. Well, and I think Simon Sinek is right when he says it's not about good leaders and bad leaders. If you are making people feel safe like that around you, and then you are a leader.
Self-sacrificial.
And if you're not doing it, then you're not a leader.
And I think that again, just to kind of put a cap on this, like, why are we doing this? Why are we having this conversation? Well, the reason is because I think that often, well, let me just put it this way. You are not free to do what you can't imagine doing.
Right.
And if we operate in the default mode as Christian business owners or Christian managers, and we just do the same thing that's the pattern that's been passed down to us, we're not realizing that pattern has become so twisted and destructive in terms of people's capacity to flourish in their jobs, that it's just deeply broken. Yeah. But number two, that there actually is an alternative way. Like we can imagine different ways of operating businesses that promote this sort of culture of belonging and mutual support, where leaders sacrifice to make their people safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we're just not willing to accept the price of asking, is there another way? I was having a conversation. Bear with me for just a second on this one. I was having a conversation with a friend talking about. He was very upset about. I think maybe Nike shoes are made by children in China or something like this. It was something like that. Child labor or the Uyghur camps or something like this. Human rights abuses in China. Yep. And he was essentially suggested that the only moral thing would be to go to war against China. We need to go to war to stop China from this. It's just like Hitler and the concentration camps. We should be over there stopping this from happening. Yeah. And setting aside whether that's insane or sane or whatever, setting all that aside, we've done any of the other things. We could just stop buying from them, right? Like if at large our country just said we won't buy from anyone who does this thing, then everyone would stop doing that thing because everyone wants American money, right? And in the same sense, the church and me as a manager and me as a father, we're often handed these very, well, there's no other way. It's like, well, hold on. What if I wasn't bound to what you just said? And what if instead I said, I could do whatever I want? Right. Yeah. So but we have to be creative. Like you said, we can't imagine things.
It's always worth asking, is there another way that we could function here?
But like you said, you can't imagine things you haven't.
You can't do things you haven't. You can't do things you haven't imagined.
Yeah. Well, and I think is it Orwell who talked about not being able to imagine things you don't have words for.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
So
that's right.
It pulls this whole thing together, right?
What is it? What's the Orwell book?
1984.
1984. There you go. Yeah. 1984.
Animal Farm, which recently got a movie.
Okay, I didn't.
By all accounts, it's.
Maybe we'll talk about the next.
We should do that.
I enjoyed 1984. I hadn't read it since.
I loved
up
Animal
to last
Farm.
year.
It was one of my favorite books.
Okay.
I haven't seen the movie.
This is Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.